Hi, it's Emma Nørgaard. So today I'm doing a foundation routine. So this is a very full coverage, matte, very flawless foundation routine, and I'm using all affordable or drugstore products. And this is really my my most favorite full coverage foundation routine. It's my favorite foundation, my favorite concealer, my favorite powder. It's like my top favorites, and I just love the results. It's just so flawless and it's extremely long wearing, and yeah, I just love everything about this foundation routine. So yeah, I really hope you guys like this type of video. Don't forget to thumbs it up if you do, and without further ado, here comes the video. So this is the foundation I'm using today. It's the Stay Matte by Rimmel. So this is a very matte, very full coverage, kind of thick foundation. So if you have oily skin like me, this foundation is just heaven sent. But even if you have like normal to dry skin, you can still use this foundation. I would just recommend using a hydrating primer underneath the foundation. And the one I would use is the Master Prime Hydrating Primer by Maybelline. I could also use this under this foundation if I wanted a bit more of a natural finish. But today I'm going for the matte look, so instead I'm going to use the Master Prime Blur Plus Smooth Primer, because I do have some larger pores in like the center of my face. So I like to shake up my liquid products, and then I go ahead and apply it, and I focus on the center where I have my large pores, and then I just kind of move it outwards. So since I do have dry under eyes, I'm going to use a little bit of this Catrice liquid camouflage under eye primer. And this step is optional if you don't have a problem with dry under eyes. You don't need like a specific under eye primer, and you also don't necessarily need a specific under eye primer. You can use just your regular primer. I just wouldn't use like a mattifying primer underneath the eyes. Okay, so the skin is all prepped. So to apply my foundation, I'm going to use this Technic foundation sponge. And I am mixing two colors. So the first is light ivory, and I mix that with classic beige. And as you can see here on the back of my hand, it is like really thick and moussey. Like it's a super thick consistency. So beware if you don't like the thick foundations. I know that turns some people off. Personally, I don't mind it, but yeah, it is thick, no way around it. But yeah, then I just start dotting it on, and then I use my sponge and I just start to tap it in. You can see how like the coverage is so intense. And for around the nose, I'm using kind of the tip of the sponge to make it easier to blend. And I will also just say right now that if you have kind of a hairy face, you have to be careful, at least with how much you're applying, because it will kind of emphasize any hairs. So here you can see the coverage. So I just take a little bit more, just where I need a little bit more extra coverage. And then I just, blend that out as well. Okay, so here you can see the coverage. It's quite intense, but if you need something from the drugstore that really covers, I would recommend this one. Another option could be this foundation by L'Oreal. This is the Infallible Total Cover. This one has the same kind of thick, moussey consistency, and it has a matte look, full coverage. So this one I also really like, but this one is more expensive than the Rimmel one. So yeah, I would go with the Rimmel simply because it's more affordable. Okay, so now at this stage in the game, I would definitely apply some lip balm. And then for concealer, I'm going to use this one by L'Oreal. This is the Infallible More Than Concealer. This one I really love. It's really comparable to Tarte Shape Tape, of course. I have the color Ivory, which is a pretty good, like a little bit brightening color for me. And this one does come with the big doe foot applicator. So I'm going to apply this underneath the eyes, of course. And I'm kind of taking it all the way into this inner corner where I get a little bit dark, and then run it down the nose to kind of slim down the nose a bit. And I like to bring my concealer out, like all the way out here to the hair almost. And that's because I have a longer face, so I'm trying to whiten my face. So the same over here. I do that initial triangular motion that, you know, everyone does. And then I also go in the inner corner and I bring it down the sides of the nose and I bring it all the way out to the hair. Now with this foundation, since it is a matte foundation and it sets on its own, it can be a little bit hard to blend out other cream products on top. So usually when I'm wearing this foundation, I only do concealer on the under eye. But since I'm doing this video, I am going to show you how you can conceal and highlight, brighten your whole face. So I am going to apply some concealer on the forehead, and again I go more horizontal, not so much vertical with my highlights. Okay, and before I blend it out, I'm going to take my powder, my loose setting powder that I'm going to use to set the concealer. Today I'm using the AirSpun loose powder. And I'm going to make sure I tap some powder out in the lid. And I'm like almost out of this one. So I get some in the lid. And in this way I'm ready with my powder to set it, to set my concealer immediately. So it doesn't have a chance to start creasing. Okay, anyway. Then I go ahead and blend this out. Again, I'm using the tip of the sponge, and then you can use the big butt or whatever of the sponge, and you can use that to blend out the edges. And I do the chin and blend out the edge, and I do the forehead. Good things go slow. And I do down the nose. And then finally I do the under eye area. I always do the under eye area last, because if you leave the concealer on, it has a little more coverage, I feel. And also the under eye has less time to crease. And again, you can use the big end to blend out the edges. Then I use the side of the pointy edge that I did not use for the concealer. And I just bake. You pick me up again. And once I have done the under eye, I go ahead and set the rest of the concealed places, also by baking. Okay, so while that is baking, I'm going to just lightly set the rest of the foundation. This foundation is the only foundation I have ever tried that I can get away with not setting. So if you want to skip the powder, you can totally skip the powder. But I am going to use a little bit of the Stay Matte powder in the color Sandstorm. And I just use a little bit. And I just set the foundation and I wipe away the baking. I especially make sure to set the places where I'm going to use powder products next. So powder blush, powder bronzer. Again, it's not necessary for it's not necessary to use powder to have a good powder blush or powder bronzer application. But today I'm just feeling like adding some powder. Feel like maybe I could lose them with you. Sinking in, and I guess I kinda like that. Okay, now to just add some finishing touches, I like to go in with a comb and just brush out my hairline, just to try and get a little bit of the foundation out of it. And then I'm going to add a little bit of Take Cover, which is like a Root Camouflage by W7. And this is in the color Blonde, and I'm just adding it wherever my hair has been lightened a bit. Okay, and after you have your hairline refreshed, I would definitely brush through my eyebrows to get the makeup out of the brow hairs. So brush them up, brush them down, brush them sideways, just try and get the product out. Okay, so I finished up the rest of my makeup. For the face makeup, I applied a little bit of matte bronzer and some matte blush. And that is all that I have put on top. And you can just see how gorgeous and flawless the skin looks. And I did turn that little sit into a mole. But yeah, that is my favorite full coverage foundation routine using only drugstore or affordable products. I just love this Rimmel Stay Matte foundation. It's my all-time favorite. It's my holy grail. I have been using this for 5 years now, and it's just my It's my favorite. So yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you did, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. You can also click the bell to get post notifications. And that is it. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. So take care and bye bye.